Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad I remember that it's the afternoon. Actually, it's been a long night. I want to begin by thanking my Senate colleagues, thanking my incredible campaign staff, represented here by Lisa Gasparoni, the Senate Political Director, and Chris Lehman, our Senate Finance Director. I want to thank all of the stakeholders, and I want to thank the terrific candidates for helping Senate Democrats achieve our goal of a two-thirds working supermajority. We started the election season, of course, with 25 seats. We ended last night and today with at least 28 seats, with the Galgiani-Berryhill race still undecided. Obviously, the edge is to Assemblymember Berryhill at this point, given where the votes are, but we will have at least 28 seats. The achievement is significant. The first time the Senate has had a supermajority since 1965, and that was under the old county election system that was not one person, one vote. If the Assembly holds on, which I think they will, it'll be the first time that there has been a supermajority in both houses since 1933. And that was a Republican supermajority, by the way, so I guess you might say it's our time. In all seriousness, I look at this as a great opportunity, but also we take on this responsibility with great humility, because we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to move the state forward. We have the responsibility to produce. We have the responsibility to continue to make needed changes here in California. And I promise that we will exercise this new power with strength, but also with humility and with reason. A personal reflection, if I might, and then I will be happy to answer your questions. It's always important, I think. I've always been taught to be a good winner and a good loser, and nothing to gloat about. There's certainly something to celebrate. We have enormous responsibilities, as I said, going ahead. But I do want to make one statement of that reflects how I feel about the institution that I'm privileged to help lead, the Senate, and to lead one half of the legislative branch of government. We are an easy target. We're 120 members, and all with different agendas and different districts and different goals. And Lord knows we are imperfect. But I take last night's result, not only our Senate elections, but also the passage of Proposition 30 as a real validation for the work we have done over the last 4 years. I started my tenure as pro tem of the Senate in December of 2008. And within a month, the budget deficit ballooned to $42 billion. And the majority party never shied away from making the hard decisions, making the cuts that I did not come to public office with any desire to make, but cuts that were necessary in every part of government. We never shied from it. And if you look at the trend through two governors and two different legislatures, we have chipped that deficit from a height of that $42 billion to $26 billion to $19 billion to single digits. And now with the passage of Proposition 30, we have an opportunity to end one difficult chapter in California and to begin a new and better chapter in California. And I want to praise a few people. I want to praise Governor Brown, who did an outstanding job, not only in this campaign, but just done an outstanding job for 2 years. Because you know what he does? He tells it like it is. And his solutions are common sense. He comes into office, he sees the $26 billion deficit, which it was at the time, and he said, we need half cuts, and we need some revenue to make sure the cuts aren't any deeper than they otherwise have to be. And then he goes out, and over 2 difficult years, he works it, he sells it, and now we get to start a new and better chapter. But I also want to thank and praise the legislative branch of government, the easy target, because we too have worked through this most difficult period of time. And the people have said, here is the revenue to stop the cuts, and here is a 2/3 super working majority, maybe in both houses, to continue your work. And so that's the only bravado I have here, is some pride in what we have done together over the last 4 years. Imperfect, but the correct path. And the voters have sent us a positive message here over the last 24 hours. Happy to answer your questions.
How California look different now that there's this supermajority?
Well, California will hopefully continue on a path towards fiscal balance, with the opportunity to once again reinvest in key public investments, whether it be public education, higher education, public safety, or health and human services. And I think we'll look different in the sense that the next 2 years, and the next 4 years, and the next 6 years ought to be about building positive agendas, not just dealing with crisis. And so in that sense, I think we have the opportunity to help California look much better. We have starved public investment quite enough. Governor Brown said it, you have to live within your means, but you can't cut so deeply that you are devastating the cornerstone of our economic growth and opportunity for people. And that's what we're on the verge of doing, certainly if Prop 30 had failed. But we have a chance now to not only restart, but to, in a smart way, recognizing some of the mistakes of the past, in a smart way to reinvest in helping more college students, in helping more young people, in implementing, I know my vision around career education in high schools, and building a high school system that is both academically rigorous and where courses are taught in applied ways as well. We can do a lot of positive, and we will. Yeah, let me get Jim. Yeah, go.
A follow-up to that.
Yeah.
Question. A follow-up to that. Does that suggest, in terms of reinvestment, that you want additional revenues beyond Prop 30?
No.
And then my question, Gerald, is your relationship with the governor. You now have a veto-proof majority.
Yes.
How will this change your relationship with the governor, the developments of last night?
Well, I'm going to first, obviously, just speak for myself here. The voters just passed 2 major revenue measures, Proposition 30 and Proposition 39. I certainly don't intend to suggest to my colleagues that the first thing we do with our new powers is to go out and seek to raise more taxes. We have got to, we can begin investing more when the budget is stable, and I think the budget now will be stable. And we will look for opportunities to make up for some of what has been lost. But I think we need to do so in a smart way. And I think that when we talk about revenue, it ought to be in the context of tax reform. That's what we ought to be talking about broadening the base, about lowering rates, about creating more competitive environment for business, and potentially bringing in more revenue, but through tax reform, not by suggesting again that we just raise taxes. In terms of my relationship with the governor, it's excellent. There's something about going through the battles together, and we have gone through the battles here together over the last 2 years, and certainly over the last year, between pension, workers' comp, high-speed rail, the second on-time budget in a row, foreclosure relief. I worked very closely with the administration on resolving the differences with the millionaires' tax proponents to avoid 3 tax initiatives on the ballot. And so we worked very well together. Now, he said it this morning, and I'll repeat it. We lead different branches of government. I lead one house of a co-equal branch of government, and we will have disagreements. That's expected. It'll be good. It'll be healthy. It'll be good for California. But, we're on the same side here, and we have the same goal, which is to help California begin a new chapter where we're building, not just hanging on and dealing with crisis year after year after year.
Senator,
Yeah.
the legislature has a reputation, and deservedly so, of shuffling money around and borrowing out of special funds, doing this, doing that. What assurances do the California voters have that Prop 30 monies will go to the intended targets, and plus Prop 39, that it's 40% that's supposed to go to schools will actually get to schools rather than go somewhere else?
Hold us accountable. And the voters certainly will. That's fine. We are going to spend Prop 30 in exactly the way it was intended, to avoid the trigger cuts, to bring the budget into fiscal balance. Prop 39, it's very clear what their requirements are. We will follow them. I would take one issue, Mike, if I might. This goes back to my, tiny bit of bravado here. About, the legislature has a well-deserved reputation for moving money around. We did some of that, and we did some of it in the context of these multi-billion-dollar deficits. And when you really think about it, it was not the preferred way to do it. Of course, without the 2/3 supermajority, without Prop 30, we could never even talk about the revenue issue. And when it comes to what some would call gimmicks or moving money around, one person's moving the money around is another person's sincere desire and goal to avoid even deeper cuts to education, higher education, and to people in need. So I don't buy the whole business, that you look at some of those decisions. They were made not just with the intent, but with the effect of ensuring that those cuts, which were already deep and difficult, were not any worse. I want to tell one quick story, because this is really on my mind. And this is where it hit me. After the end of session, the Saturday after the end of session, I was invited to go up to Cal Expo, to the California Dental Association's annual dental fair. And I thought I was doing what we politicians, do on Saturdays. You go on up, say hello, shake a few hands, and thank the volunteers. And I will never forget what I saw. I saw endless lines of low-income Californians waiting in line not to get their teeth cleaned, but waiting in line to deal with abscessed teeth, with root canals, people who had lost all of their teeth because they couldn't get preventive dental care. And I already knew it, but I remembered standing there on that Saturday morning watching this sea of people, that we eliminated adult Denti-Cal in 2009 as part of the $42 billion budget deficit. I want to restore that. And so, were we able to avoid even worse outcomes in other areas of the health and human service or education by, quote, moving some money around during these years? Yes. But we have gotten to virtual fiscal balance by making real deep cuts and by taking our case to the people. And they have said to us, we want you now to govern without obstruction and with the ability to do some positive things.
Well, that's what people are afraid of, is that you just said, I want to restore this program. Well, there's probably another program another Democrat wants to restore. There's another program so you're gonna run amok and
No.
raise taxes
I-
like crazy.
Number one, I've always led down the middle. And I use the word, and I've used it a couple of times very purposely, humility. We're not going to just go do whatever we want to do. And we won't have the ability to restore all of the losses that have occurred over the last 4 years. But we will take the opportunity to fight for and restore some of the worst cuts that have been made over the last several years. Absolutely. But we'll be smart about it. We will be smart about it.
Does that mean a possible tax increase through the legislative?
No.
two-thirds?
No. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. If we talk about taxes at all, we'll talk about tax reform.
Senator, what about
On the top of your agenda, what are the things?
Well, let me tell you a couple of things. I mean, number one, I want to engage California in a real debate, and we would have the ability to put constitutional changes on the ballot. I want to engage in a discussion about initiative reform. Prop 38, kind of a perfect example of where, thank God the voters are smart and that they see through a lot of the show. But people should not be able to dictate public policy because they've got, big checkbooks. Representative government means something. And so I say a couple of things. We ought to take to the ballot a constitutional change which would allow the legislature to place a statutory initiative on the ballot with a majority vote. Number two, when an initiative proponent puts an initiative, gains the signatures and submits them to the Secretary of State, there ought to be a 60-day cooling off period where that initiative proponent can negotiate with the legislature and governor, and if they can come to a compromise, approved by representative government and signed off by the initiative proponent, that compromise can substitute for the initiative. And number three, we ought to sunset these statutory initiatives after 10 or 15 years because times change. I don't think we should get rid of the initiative process. I think it serves a very important purpose, but I think we need to tie it in a much more effective way with the governor and the legislature, with representative government. And so with the 2/3 supermajority, working majority, we have the opportunity to put questions like that on the ballot so that the voters can consider making constitutional change. We need, remember a couple of years ago the talk of a constitutional convention? I don't know that we ought to do a full-on constitutional convention, but we ought to look at the Constitution. We have the opportunity to address the continuing challenges in the relationship between state and local governments. We have the ability to look at the initiative process. We have the ability to look at a whole host of things and think about taking key questions, constitutional questions, to the ballot without having to spend $8-10 million to gather signatures in order to qualify them.
Senator, does that include Prop 8? Would you consider putting Prop 8 back on the ballot?
The marriage equality? Well, that's a good question. I'd have to think about that. I would certainly be open to that. Absolutely. I mean, I know that the cases are running through the court, and thus far the courts have held that barring same-sex couples from marrying is a violation of equal protection. I know that there were some major victories throughout the country. I'd consider any strategy that would promote the cause of civil rights and equality.
What about the majority requirement itself? Would you put the majority requirement, raising revenues through a simple majority, as a constitutional amendment?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. I think what I'd rather, if I were going to look at questions like that, I'd like to look at giving local governments greater authority over the revenue side of their budgets, because I think we can continue to realign and help local governments fund the services and programs that they're responsible for.
What are the prospects of improving funding for the judicial branch? The judicial branch has obviously been dealing with its own problems, and you've stated very clearly you're not interested in new taxes. What about now that Prop 30 may help improve the balance of the budget in the state, about
returning funds to the court system or potentially improving in the longer term?
I think it's one of the priority areas. It's one of the areas of government that has suffered the most. The judiciary is a co-equal branch of government. It's not just another state department. And I think it is a prime candidate, as we are able and when we are able to make some restorations. I don't know when that will be. I don't know that it will be this coming year. I know we can avoid deeper cuts in that area and all these areas. And I think we ought to look strategically as the economy continues to improve to reinvest where we can.
Senator, are Republicans now useless in state government?
No. Let me make that, my attitude, my message to my Republican colleagues is this: the door is still open. The door is still open, but they're going to have to decide how they want to govern. I mean, if there was not a clear message about why the Republicans are suffering the losses they're suffering, I don't want to give too much free advice here, but look at the issue of immigration and their relationship with the Latino community. The Latino vote throughout the country and in this state is so crucial. It is the growing population. And yet in Senate District 31, the Richard Roth race, which Richard won, and convincingly, his opponent, Jeff Miller, sent out one of the most insidious, inappropriate pieces of mail I have ever seen in my career. On the last day out of desperation, it was racist, and it was an attack on people with brown skin. It was your illegal immigration. Richard Ross supports these people with driver's licenses and people of color on the, on the driver's license. It was wrong. And if they're gonna act like that, thank God he didn't win. If they're gonna act like that, they're gonna have a hard time. If they wanna, we need a two-party system, and there's nothing wrong with being the party of fiscal conservatism, and they're welcome. But we're gonna govern just as we have the last 4 years in ways that I know have not been, what we've done the last 4 years, it's not been, this high profile, look at these great things, although we have a number of achievements. We've chipped away at this monster. There's a deficit. We've chipped away. 42, 26, 19, 8. I'm not going to say hike. But we've chipped away at this thing. And the public institutions that we take such pride in are still standing. They're hurting, but they're still standing. And now we need to help them stabilize and again, reinvest where we can.
Senator, can I ask you
Yes, Hannah.
for a minute and talk about Tom Steyer?
Yeah.
What was it like to work with him? Where do you see his political future?
I think the world of Tom Steyer. He did it, Prop 39, for all the right reasons. And that was a well-crafted measure, and they ran a very positive campaign. And Tom is the kind of guy who you really want in politics, because even with his wealth and his willingness to use it, he's not a my way or the highway guy. He's a relationship guy, and he I think has developed a very good reputation around here. Was that a dig at Molly Munger? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. One of the things we did in the midst of our celebration last night was do a little bit of the research. Look at the two members of the Senate who appear to have won congressional seats. I assume will resign around the 1st of January, because the new Congress gets sworn in, I believe the 3rd. So what that would mean is that we would have runoff elections in March, special elections in March, under the 2010 lines, by the way, in March, and a runoff in May if necessary, which means that we will have their 2 replacements seated well before the House of Origin deadline in the Senate and any votes on the budget. Now, it's further complicated by 2 things. Number one, Senator Price has announced he's going to run for city council in Los Angeles. If he wins in March, then we could probably have his replacement in place, hopefully before the budget. But if he were to win and leave, say, in May, the LA council runoff, we wouldn't have his replacement this summer. But that's why 28 is important, because even if we are short 1 for a key period of time, we still have 27. And you know what? No matter what that challenge is, it's a great problem to have. I'll take it. We'll take it. Oh, I don't know. I just want to make sure we elect a Democrat.
Isn't that Mr. Boyce?
Ben Wesso seems to be the one with the most energy, and he's out there, and but look at they are both districts have strong Democratic voter registration advantages. We'll hold the seats. We're just going to have to deal with the complication, and then depending if an assembly member wins the Senate seats, they may then have the same issue over there. And Mr. Wesso, of course, is a standing member of the Assembly.
Going back to your initiatives, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That idea, and please, I need a civics lesson either from you or some staff. There's requirements, 2/3 requirements for an initiative, but they don't require the governor's signature, and for constitutional amendment, don't you need a 4/5 vote? Please explain the requirements there for us.
You need for statutory, you need a 2/3 vote to place a constitutional amendment on the ballot. And there are different circumstances some that require the governor's signature and some that don't. And we probably need to get back to you on where that division is and what the particulars.
Doesn't come into play, that's something else.
No, there's not a 4/5 requirement that I know of. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thanks, you guys.